Canadian SME Small Business Podcast, the show where we dive deep into the world of leadership, business trends, and the strategies that shape them. Today, we're honored to have a guest who has redefined the concept of peer-to-peer learning in leadership, Mr. Goren, the CEO of PEO Leadership. With a roster of member companies ranging from Alcon to Crayola and Nestle, Leon's insights have been instrumental in shaping the success of leaders across various sectors. Together, we're going to uncover the essence of peer-to-peer leadership groups, their significance in today's fast-paced business world, and the pressing concerns of SME CEOs. Let's get started. Hi, Leon. On behalf of Canadian SME, I'd like to welcome you to our Small Business Podcast. How are you today?
Very good. Thanks for having me.
Very pleased to have you with us this afternoon. Now, Leon, your journey has been quite remarkable, and that has led to the inception of a very influential platform. Can you give our readers a brief overview of your background and what led you to create PEO Leadership?
Absolutely. So I don't know how remarkable it is, but we can take a step back. So I started as an accountant. I'm a chartered accountant, went through the rosters of working for some of the accounting firms, and then branched off to become an entrepreneur back in 1997 with a company called justwhiteshirts.com. Still around today. It was one of the first internet companies out there. And in doing so, at that time, I ended up doing a lot of speaking on stage. So I got approached by an individual at the time who was running a company called Presidents of Enterprising Organizations, which was a member peer-to-peer organization. And he asked me if I would join them at that time. And two things were interesting to me. One was the loneliness of being a leader as running a business. And two, I was always interested in strategy and people. Mm-hmm. So he sort of got me on those two things. And the rest is history. I attended, I became a member for many years. I eventually sold my business and then ended up helping him build his business. And then about 15 years ago, I bought the organization.
Amazing.
And been building it since.
Wow. Now, Leon, the landscape of leadership is constantly evolving, especially with the rapid changes in the business environment. Now, why do you believe peer-to-peer leadership groups are essential in today's business environment?
So I think you just got to look around in terms of what's happening. And we just came through COVID. And COVID was a great example of the power of community, right? The ability to actually pick up the phone, have a group around you that you could lean in when you had incredible uncertainty. And we've been preaching that for many, many years, even before COVID, to get people involved in these peer-to-peer groups. I come back to the basic point. One is leadership is quite lonely. There's very few people that you can actually talk to. You have your management team, even in an SME, it still may be a half decent sized management team. You've got your friends, you got your family. But the reality is, if you have your own advisory board where you can actually go in, close the door, and actually express some of the issues and opportunities in an environment where people will be objective, unbiased, and help you, there's nothing better than that. And not only is it great at that in terms of helping you solve some of those problems, but it also gives you an idea of what's going on around the world. So if you have 10 different businesses around the table, you really get an inclination of what's coming down the path. Mm-hmm. You take a look. I can just describe the last couple of years. What do we have? We had COVID. We have a war.
Major one, yeah.
What happens next? We had talent shortages. We had inflation. Now we got a little bit of stabilization on talent where it's not as crazy as it was before. Right. But we have interest rates at, I think inflation peaked at about 9.1%, I think, in the US. And we have inflation rates still above that 2%. And you're starting to see everything starting to slow. Mm-hmm. So in a peer-to-peer group, you're actually you hear about this stuff all the time. You think about it. You see what's coming actually in the next few months because you can listen to various people around the table. So it just gives you an edge. It gives you an incredible edge, right? Versus trying to do it all on your own.
Right.
That's the big difference.
Now, there's been a long-standing tradition with leadership development programs that many are familiar with. Given that, how do peer-to-peer leadership groups differ from traditional leadership development programs?
Okay, so you're right. There's lots of leadership development programs around. I would tell you, let's start with the one that's most easiest to compare, and that would be coaching, one-on-one coaching. And you have a lot of people reach out to one-on-one coaches. Absolutely fantastic. I find what they're great at is 6 months to a year. It's around a specific issue. and or opportunity, and it's one-on-one. And that's business coaching, right? There's also life coaching as well. All great. But imagine if you could have both. The business coach who walks the journey with you from A to B, and you're going to define what success is, plus an advisory board of which your coach or your advisor is the chairperson of that group. So understands where you're trying to get to. So now you're not only leveraging your advisor, but you're also now leveraging 10 to 12 individuals around the table and their expertise. I mean, it's very hard to beat that. The other types of leadership development, traditional, is bringing them into your own organization, bringing it around content. Sometimes it's around capabilities. But you got to remember, what we deal with is essentially at the executive level, vice presidents, directors, and above. And it's just different in terms of how they learn. And a great example could be, I don't know if you've ever studied case study when you go to business school and you go through, right? Yeah. And it's historic perspectives. But how many cases, you can actually remember those cases because you're in there thinking about them, participating usually in a group, dissecting them, and coming up with ideas. Very different than reading a book.
Absolutely.
And learning from a book.
Very
and
hands-on.
So that's where you get the real power of a group.
For sure. Now, Leon, building a successful business community or a group always hinges on the bond between its members. Now, trust and collaboration are quite pivotal within any group dynamic. Yeah. How does PEO leadership cultivate the qualities amongst its members?
So I think it all starts with the onboarding process. Mm-hmm. So if you're a new member coming on board, so the first thing you got to understand is it's not for everyone. Right. All right. So there's a conversation usually up front to understand what your needs are going to be. What success, I always ask, what's success look like 12 months from today? Or I match it up to your fiscal year end. And define it in your business, your health, your wealth, your family, and your career. Although business is what's drawing you in. From that conversation, I'm looking for a couple things. One is this individual as a leader motivated to grow and continue to learn? 2, can they participate? Can they listen? Will they actually be able to listen and participate, actively participate around a group? And you'd be surprised, some leaders don't run their businesses that way, right? They run it their way, even though everything is changing these years as we move on, but they still do it that way. So you're looking for a couple of those elements. So I'm hopeful, what we do is we screen them well. So that's the first step. The second step, when you get them into a group, there's a whole process. I'm never going to put anybody on the spot up front. So you come into a 3.5-hour meeting. It's your first meeting. You sit down. And really what I'm looking for from you is, yes, you're going to introduce yourself. You're going to identify why you're participating in your group. You're going to educate us a little bit about your business and a little bit about yourself. And then what I'm looking for is for you to just actively participate. I'm not going to put you on the spot that first month, right? I'm going to let the members of an existing group sort of share, reach out to you, participate in that group as we go through a whole bunch of different issues and opportunities. So you get accustomed to the type of culture and how that advisory board runs. And if I got it right in terms of the screening, it'll work out. So usually by the second or third meeting, what you end up having is you sort of say, okay, I get the culture a little bit of this group. I see the vulnerability. A lot of these people have bonded. They trust each other. Everyone understands, even though they're all on NDAs, but they truly understand that what's spoken to or what we speak about in this room stays in this room. And so it takes time. I never push anybody right up front, but it's magical when it happens. It truly is. It's not just about business anymore. It's about someone's life. Right? And the reality is someone's life consists of a lot more than business. And it's not, every person's different, but what we're trying to do is help them work on all aspects and get it to work in harmony in that room. Right? And so everybody thinks the same way. And so we challenge each other. We challenge each other personally.
Right.
If it doesn't make sense, what are you doing?
Absolutely. Now, being at the helm of, PEO leadership, you have a very unique vantage point. That is that you get to interact with various leaders and understand their concerns. Leon, based on your interactions and insights that you've gained from PEO leadership members, what would you say are the top 3 concerns facing SME CEOs today?
I don't think the SMEs, they're facing the same things most businesses are today. And that the number one thing probably is disruption. Right. And, we used to say that it was easy to sort of predict the future. Where are we going to be in 5 years, those 5-year strategy plans? I think it's become very difficult. You can do it in the context of your business, but you can't control what's happening in the macro environment. And so I think a lot of leaders are struggling, and SMEs as well. We saw it today, last week, the Liberal government extend that $60,000 repayment. So they're worried about the cash situation many of these leaders are facing today on the SME side, for sure. So the constant change leads to sleepless nights for a lot of these individuals. That's number one. Number two, I would tell you, is talent. And I think talent, it's been a yo-yo over the last several years, right? We went from talent shortages to now talent sort of saying, okay, I'm a little bit worried, unemployment's growing, I realize everything is slowing down. But as a leader of an organization, you're worried about hiring the right talent, making sure you got the right people. And then you're also worried about, how am I going to retain this talent? And why I bring those up is because it's become much more difficult today than it probably was 4 or 5 years ago, right? I think the belief of a lot of people, I think there's a lot more stress on a lot of these people. I think there's a lot more suffering out there going on with a lot of talent today. And I think a lot of leaders, even though they've gotten better at being empathetic and actually still realizing how to lead, it's become very difficult. And they've actually led through COVID, which means they've been resilient. They've gotten through it, but it's still weighing on their shoulders. I think a lot of them are exhausted on this. So this whole element of continuing to train talent, bring talent on is big. And then SMEs specifically, if you ask me the third one, I always say cash flow.
Right. That's a major point.
We all run a small business. What are you always worried about? You're worried about paying your bills. Actually, even before paying your bills, paying your people, right? And what comes next? Where's my receivables? What's my revenue model going to look like? And the problems just get bigger as you become a bigger SME, to be quite frank. So,
and on top of that, we're living in an era with rapid technological advancements, which poses both opportunities and threats. Now, Leon, from your experience, how are SME CEOs adapting to the challenges posed by digital transformation and the integration of emerging tech?
So, that's a tough question.
It is.
I mean, I can just be a generalist here. I think we're probably all too slow on the adaptation of the AI, particular AI, right? And that goes for bigger companies as well as SMEs. I think it's the unfortunate part is we're just in difficult times. So when you think about how much money you can expend on this stuff, you start to worry about, do I make that investment today or not? The reality is the thing is moving so quickly. It's like, it brings me back to my .com world.
Right.
When we started in 1996, 1997, there was really, people had internet for the first time in their offices. They didn't know what to do with it.
True.
Right. So back at Just White Church, I remember spending millions of dollars on building out systems. Today, those same systems are probably $100. Like, it's crazy. So, you're in an SME situation today and you see all the new technology coming, but it's difficult to figure out, where should you start? Who should you partner with? And how much money you should spend on it. These are really, really difficult decisions. And it's very, very difficult to go at it on your own today. I mean, so much of it is dependent on data and your alliances, right? So
absolutely.
So that's why I say it's a difficult question. I say people are slow, but I'm also, I've been in that situation. I know how expensive it can be. And sometimes it's easier to sort of follow the wave and jump on maybe at a later time.
Oh, really? Then it's been a privilege to be diving into all these great topics with you, Leon. You have your insights have not only shed light on the intricate landscape of the peer-to-peer leadership, but also eliminated the challenges and the opportunities that SME CEOs will face in this digital age. Thank you so much for your time and your expertise today.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure to be here.
And that wraps up another enlightening episode of the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast. A big thank you to Leon Goren for sharing his wealth of knowledge and providing invaluable insights into the realm of leadership. As we continue to bring you more voices that inspire and guide, we'd like to take a moment to express our gratitude to the partners that make this podcast possible. Our exclusive banking partner, RBC, who always has our financial interests at heart, our dependable shipping partner, UPS, ensuring smooth operations behind the scene, and Xero, our trusted accounting software partner that keeps our numbers in check. Join us again for another episode, and until then, keep leading, keep learning, and keep growing.